Hi, welcome back to Choosing to Rise, a podcast about faith, leadership, and transformation. I'm Dr. Carolyn Kennedy, your host, and I'm truly glad that you're here with me today. It has been a little bit since I've done a podcast. I had a little bit of hiatus, a few things going on. Basically, life was lifing, Not going to make excuses, but I am going to choose to show myself grace, and we're going to pick up where we left off. Stand up in the ashes and choose to rise. Today's episode, I'd like to talk to you about the power of one good hello. And I know that I've talked about it once before. I talked about how the reason I started my business was because of one good hello. I was talking to my therapist and she'd asked me the question, Carolyn, what do you love to do? And I couldn't name it. So I created it. In this business that I've created, it has three facets. And many people have asked me, well, which one do you want to focus on? Which one do you want to pay attention to? Which one do you want to, I guess the better word, not necessarily pay attention to, but which one do you want to prioritize? And so the three facets of my business have been speaking, writing, and coaching. And so since, I guess, last December, I've been struggling with trying to figure out which one do I prioritize? Which one do I spend the most time on? Because, if everything's your focus, nothing truly is. And I've been trying to focus on coaching. And the reason I've been trying to focus on coaching is because of that connection, that one-on-one connection. And I feel like that's where I was thinking that I could make an impact. That's where I was thinking that I'd be able to see the impact. But then the power of another one good hello. There is this awesome organization called Corner to Corner. It is a nonprofit organization in Nashville, Tennessee, and they exist to help underrepresented business entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. They work on a process where they have cohorts and you can apply to be in the cohort. And I applied. And by the grace of God, I was part of the lottery. So I was chosen to participate in this current cohort. While in this organization or while attending this class, and we go to class one night a week, it meets in Nashville. And those of you who know me know that that's a whole lot because I'm driving to Nashville. My daughter and her friend helped me to find a better route that is less anxiety driven. Let's just say the first night of class was an absolute experience for more than one reason. The first night of class on the way back, I apparently didn't do my GPS correctly, where you tell it to avoid interstates and highways and those things because the interstate between Clarksville and Nashville causes me great anxiety. So apparently I didn't click on the right button. And so I was on my way back from class that first night. And on the way back, I heard this ding, this bell, this chime in my car. And I'm having a full on panic attack. I'm thinking that, oh my goodness, traffic is literally moving about 8 miles an hour. I'm coming back from this first night of class, trying to, soak in everything that I learned, but then having a complete panic attack on the way back. And it's dinging and I hear this noise. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, a teacher friend. I hung up with her, called my daughter because, of course, I called my daughter and I'm telling her, my car is messing up. I don't know what's going on. Having all of the feels, all of the reactions, all of the things going on all at once. And you guys, lo and behold, it wasn't my car. Apparently my smartwatch is smarter than me. And apparently when I drive, you know how you're supposed to have your hands at 10 and 2? I usually have mine at probably closer to 9 and, well, let's see, no more like 4 and 8, I guess. So I drive with my hands underneath my steering wheel. Instead of up here, I drive with them down here underneath my steering wheel. And so as I'm driving, the bottom of my wrist is leaning on my leg. Somehow or another, I had pressed something, started something, a timer, a clock. I'm still not even sure what it was. But anyway, long story short, my smartwatch is smarter than I am. But back to the story, the original story. sidebar there. This class that meets once a week, Corner to Corner is the name of the organization, and the class that meets is called the Academy, and it's a 10-week academy, and we come together and we talk about our mission statements, we talk about who our client is, what our target audience should be, we talk about what our service is, what our product is, all of these things, just trying to help define and truly clarify, because if you're scattered, yours truly, if you're scattered, it's hard to, well, I guess it's not hard to start a business, but it's hard to grow a business if you're scattered. So I guess what we were trying to do is tame my spider, because of course, you know that my mind goes every which direction. And of course I see the connections, but that doesn't mean that they're good connections or logical connections or strategical, healthy connections. So at this class, not on the first night, but now that I've got a better route, because like I said, my daughter and her friend actually helped me find a better route that takes me without all of the anxiety. It's a little bit longer, but a whole lot more peaceful. So second night or third night of class, I'm not sure which one it was, second or third night of class, I was talking to one of my classmates. Everybody just calls him Coach. I was talking to one of my classmates about trying to figure out what's wrong with my coaching package, what's wrong with the way that I'm explaining my coaching, because it's just really not gaining traction. Have you guys ever seen a car spin their wheels in the mud, and it just spins and it spins and it spins and it spins, and you get nowhere? But for whatever reason, people just keep on pressing the gas, like, well, if I gun it a little bit harder, then it's going to get traction and go in the direction that it needs to be going in. Basically, that's what I've been doing with my business. I've been spinning my wheels. And don't get me wrong, coaching is absolutely still a passion. Absolutely. But I was putting the gas pedal ahead of putting something under the tire in order to gain the traction, you guys. So let me explain. I was talking to Coach and I was telling him about my failed packages for coaching and how it wasn't gaining traction, and how I wanted to be able to help other people, to be able to make an impact, to be able to, as you know, we all say, leave this world better than the way we found it. Otherwise, our living is in vain. What are we doing, right? And as I was talking, somehow or another, because of course, you know, all of my things, I jump from one topic to another, as if you hadn't noticed. And I ended up talking about my books. And I ended up talking about, so first, you know, I talked a little bit about my latest book, when you're ready to begin a 13-week journey through the season of rising. And then I started talking about Jeannie's journey from black and white to vibrant tapestry. And he asked me who Jeannie was. And I started talking about Jeannie's story. I started talking about Jeannie's journey, not just the title of the book, but about her journey. I talked about how Jeannie was the first Black American hired employee at the elementary school that she ended up working at after desegregation up in this Northeast Tennessee town. I started talking about how she lived her life to make a difference. How when I interviewed her for my dissertation, even though she was talking about a situation as difficult and as painful as segregation, she never said a negative word. There were times that when I was talking to her, it's like she would start and then she'd catch herself. She'd pause and she'd reframe. She never said that segregation was good. She never said that the things that people went through during that time were good. She just chose intentionally to focus on what was good. She focused on people. She focused on family. She focused on the fun times that she had at that segregated school, Douglas High School. She focused on the experiences that she had, the lessons that she learned, the people that she met, the people that she was able to help. And then as she talked about the desegregation process, she didn't talk about the riots. She didn't talk about the fights. She didn't talk about the violence. She talked about the good pieces, the good parts. She talked about how in her own community, how she worked to help others to rise, how she helped others to find opportunities, how she ended up being a part of Weed and Seed, how she did all these different things within her community. And she talked about how her favorite song was the song that Mahalia Jackson sang that talks about how, as I go along this journey, if I can help somebody, if I can help somebody through a word or a song, then my living has not been in vain. And I think ever since that conversation with Jeannie, I think it's been my favorite song too. And ever since me interviewing Jeannie for my dissertation, she left an impact on me. Jeannie was the type of person that you didn't choose to be impacted by Jeannie. It wasn't a choice. It was just a reality. And as I talked about Jeannie's story, and then how I talked about how during her 40 years of working for the school, the impact that she made in the school system as well as in her own community, and how the mayor came to her retirement celebration and proclaimed it Jeannie Hodges Day, and how I talked about how after her 40 years of working for the school system, we were embarking on the 40th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, how I talked about how in 2008, I was working on my dissertation, how I talked about how I became the first Black elementary school principal in that same school system post-desegregation, and how I talked about how all of these things were culminating at the time that our nation was electing our first Black president of the United States, and how Dr. Daddy Davis, as I called him, my friend Tammy's father, Tammy was the principal at the school, and her father kept on saying, someone needs to tell her story. Someone needs to tell her story. And I was relaying this story to Coach. He asked me, why are you focusing on life coaching first? You're a storyteller. And I kind of paused. And it's kind of like asking, which one of your children is your favorite child? He asked me that question too. Which one of your children is your favorite child? And I said, of course, you don't have a favorite. That's how I feel about speaking, writing, and coaching. I don't have a favorite. But what the Academy is helping me to see is that it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about understanding how life works, and that people have to know you, trust you, and like you before you can make that impact one-on-one. Know you, trust you, and like you before you can ever hope to make an impact one-on-one. So that got me thinking. That was a good hello. When I say a good hello, in case this is your first time with me, a good hello is a chance meeting, a new opportunity, a really good conversation, either with somebody else or maybe even just an honest conversation with yourself. And sometimes it's about choosing to stop running and lean into your gifts, your calling, your purpose, and focus on where you're supposed to focus first. So that was one thing. Another thing, you ever have one of those times in your life where you keep on getting a hint and you say, okay, I'm listening. I have a mentor who, through Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an organization that I joined back in January. So I started my business in December and I joined Toastmasters in January. Toastmasters is an organization that exists to help people to empower people to grow in their leadership and their communication skills. And in Toastmasters, I have a mentor. And probably since about February or March, my mentor has been saying to me, Carolyn, stop running from who you are. And of course, I just blow him off because I'm thinking, what's he talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's my mentor, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I wasn't paying attention. But after this conversation with Coach at an academy class, and that was on a Wednesday night, that weekend, I was talking to Coach on the phone, and we were talking about podcasts and speaking and getting ready for my debut at the PMI Nashville Symposium on that big stage of having that big that big speech that I was preparing for. And I was talking about the way that I was approaching the speech, and I was talking about trying to figure out how to, in a room that large, we're talking about 240 people, how do you still make an impact? And not for me, but for them. How do you make an impact? How do you make it worth their while that they came and that you gave them what they needed? And he said the same thing to me again. He said, "You're an educator. That's what you do." And you guys, it's almost as if somebody had held a mirror in front of my face and finally wiped off the fog. I'm not turning from coaching. That's ultimately what I want to do, both one-on-one and in groups. But what I'm understanding and what some clarity that I've gained through this experience, this one good hello, this Phoenix moment for me, has been that I speak because I'm a storyteller, because I'm an educator. I write to go deeper with the stories that I tell on stage. And I coach to connect one-on-one. Is there something that maybe you've been running from? Maybe something that you're supposed to be focusing on, a purpose, a seed that's been planted? Is there a mirror that somebody in your life needs to hold up for you to be able to see? Wipe the fog off, clear the mirror so that you can see what's been there all along. I'm a storyteller, and I love to tell stories. I'm an author. I love to write. But when I write, it's still about the story. If you've read my devotional or picked it up or looked at it at all, every single week starts with a story. One of my stories. I'm a storyteller. And if you think all the way back to history, the history of our world, the history of us as a people, that history was passed from person to person through stories. When you read the Bible, it's stories. We learn through stories. We connect through story. Through our stories, we have a way to connect, to relate, to dream, to hope, to imagine, to grow, to refine. It starts with a story. Our story, your story, my story. But it starts with a story. All along, I've been saying your journey matters. It's the story of your journey. It matters when you share it with somebody else. When what you've gone through can help somebody else. In church this morning, the pastor was talking about how our failures don't have to be fatal, and how our failures can then be part of our testimony that helps somebody else. But that only happens if we share the story. I think I'm going to stop running, you guys. I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to stand up in these ashes, dust myself off, and choose to rise. And I want to bring you along with me. I want you as part of my story so we can connect, so we can relate, so we can dream together, so we can hope. The world's not always a great place out there, you guys. And we're not meant to do it alone. We were meant to do this together in community. And if you notice, I added the word leadership in the name of the podcast, a podcast about faith, leadership, and transformation. Growth and transformation were kind of redundant. So, why leadership? Because leadership isn't about a title. We all choose to lead right where we are. Leadership isn't about how we show up for ourselves first, because you can't lead anyone else until you're leading yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Like I said, part of the reason I started Good Hello to begin with was because my therapist asked me, Carolyn, what do you love to do? I love to share a story. I love to help others. I love to help you to see what you already have inside of you. That brings me joy. And we know that in today's world, we can use a little bit more joy. So regardless of what's going on around me in the world, near or far, I'm trying my best to learn how to choose joy. I might be an author, but the author of my tomorrow, he's ordering my steps. He's got me in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. And so regardless of what's going on out there, I'm going to lean into the purpose that he's called me to. And I'm going to choose to rise. And I'm going to bring as many people along with me as I can. Your journey matters. Your story matters. Share it. Share it. So until next time, keep choosing to rise and learning to thrive, one good hello at a time. And thank you to those people who keep giving me a good hello and making sure that I practice what I preach. Thank you. Hope to see you soon. Bye.